Alright, so really quickly, I'm gonna be, as I'm trying to prepare these things a bit more accurately, I'm gonna just say really quickly what I actually have in mind doing today. So, very quickly, um, basically, what was is that today, today I want to discuss an idea that I have for basically a sort of system for lobbies, where especially for games that are asymmetric games, so in which in which there are two sides, and one side has more players than the other. So, for example, and I guess the most prevalent example would be Dead by Daylight. Now, uh, I don't really like Dead by Daylight that much. I used to play it a lot before, but now recently, well, not that recently, now I think about it, not so long ago, they implemented a new gameplay style or game mode in which basically you play as there are two killers rather than just one, and there are 8 survivors rather than just 4. Now, the thing that's happened is that it's basically exacerbated the issue that they were having before, and now before the issue that they were having was that because of course of how it works, um, the game has of course of how it works, one side can only be played one time by one person, and then the other side can be played by 4 people simultaneously. So of course basically one side has a lower service rate than the other. And at this point basically I'm gonna be going into sort the logistics of how attractions work, and how queuing works is really bizarre once you start learning about it. A good video that I decided to a good video that I decided to watch on it, which explains it fantastically, is one by Defunct Land, which I would defunct land. There we go. Which was where it is there. Disney's Fast and Pass Complicated History.
Animal Kingdom. Saturday, March.
No, sentence. There we go. Now, I'm gonna put it here in the for reference. Now, in this video, it explains basically how service rates works on attraction sites, and how basically it all depends on various things. How many spaces there are available, how quick is each per se, how quick is the experience itself and how many people are in demand for it. That will basically always affect how fast are people being serviced per se, right? Now, the big issue that it is with a lot of asymmetric games is that of course one side is being played. One side only has per se just one slot of service, whilst the other side has more slots for service. lobbies. Okay. Sorry. Sorry I was taking so long to talk. Okay. Really quickly. Oh yeah, and also sorry with the oh let me hold up. I need to put it to back up. Yeah, I need to try to find a way how to make sure that music, that the background music doesn't loop so obviously. I mean, it does come with the issue that I am basically just using a track from a hyperloop. But oh well. I mean, there should be a way to just make it loop. Well, could make a program for that. Who knows? But you go here. Okay. Right. There we go. Nothing there. All right. Okay. So, going back to what I was trying to say. Basically, a lot of issues that happens with games can actually be more or less. I feel that they could be basically helped by looking at real life examples. And a good real life example is basically attraction parks. Now, many people would be like, how would that basically help? Well, basically, here's the thing. So we can look at games as a service. As a service, I mean, right? And each game per se, if it's an online game, that's a lobby. Usually, per match, if it will have a certain amount of slots, or that can be filled up by players. Each lot has to be usually in most games has to be filled up before the game starts. And if at least one slot is not filled up, then the game won't start at all. Now, this is mainly coming from now the only thing that can be kind of basically in my head, at least in my mind, the only thing that could be sorry, this is kind of off the top of my head. Basically, most attraction parks do also basically just work the same. You have a ride that has a bunch of slots per se, not usually like a bunch of slots, but basically you have a ride that has a bunch of slots, and then they can be filled up to a certain maximum, usually, it's real life. And then the ride will go for a couple minutes, usually a set time, and then people have to get off for the next people to the servers to get on. It works more or less the same, but the principles are more or less there, which basically you have you have the available slots, you have have the available slots, which are all right here. You have how long the ride is gonna be, or the matches are gonna be usually, which would be like per se. Now for an attraction, usually this is like literally like almost a minute, or even less than a minute sometimes for some. It's not that much, but for games, it can even go up to like 30 minutes. 30 minutes, right? Now we can go up to around 30 minutes, and then you have the demand for it, right? Which would be basically your player base. Right. Now, it does differentiate a lot with games than park. Now, it does differentiate a lot between a park and a game because one, a game usually cannot start unless all the slots are filled up. There are some games that are multiplayer that don't have to be all fully filled up, but I cannot think of one. If you know, I cannot think if of a full-on correct example. All I know is that some multiplayer games, especially like battle royales or structured shooters, don't need to have both sides. They don't need to have a full lobby. But I cannot remember which are which. So I don't want to be saying, oh yeah, this one doesn't have anything. So yeah. But yeah, in a park, usually you can just, even if you have a set amount of slots available for people to get onto, usually if there isn't enough, then a ride can just, it can just go on. It can still have available slots. It doesn't have to have them all filled up, right? Because in the end of the day, these are people that need to be serviced, and as soon as they get on, they usually they can just. You don't want them to be waiting for a long time, but what's happening is that a lot of the times you have a long waiting time. Again, on games you have a long waiting time per se. For games that last a long time, right? Now, of course, this can now usually this issue isn't that much of an issue or this issue doesn't become present in most per se games that are about like battle royales, destruction shooters, or even games with massive player bases that are all gonna be playing basically the same game again and again, right? However, there's a specific type of games that basically get fucked over by this all the time. And it's basically asymmetric games. I mean, and of course, the main example would be Dead by Daylight, in which they've always been having the issue, in which, of course, in Dead by Daylight, you have two sides. You have two sides. You have killer, and you have the survivors. Killers can only be one. In each match, there can only be one killer. One killer, and in the survivor side, there is before. Now, of course, this can cause a lot of issues because, of course, let's say that in a group of, or let's just say that in a group of five, in a group of 10 people, you have 4 people who want to play killers, then you have 6 people who want to play survivors. Now, of course, this ratio does not fucking work at all, because this means that at least if they wanted to make a lobby per se, so to have a full game of Dead by Daylight, you need to have 5 people, one killer and 4 survivors, right? Now, in this hypothetical, at least one of these persons or one of these people has been serviced as a killer, and in here there are still 2 survivors left that want to play. If you want to then make another lobby, well, you're going to encounter an issue that now you're going to have 1 killer, but there isn't enough survivors for the next lobby, as you can see. Yeah, so of course there's been a lot of issues in which basically lobbies have not been able to be started at all, even because of how the system now works, which basically the survivors are all paired up before the lobby starts, and then a killer is put into that lobby. However, nowadays, or even for a long time, there's always been the issue in which basically there's been a lot of long queuing times, especially if you're a killer, because a lot of people want to play killer and not that many people want to play survivor. So of course the issue is outright exacerbated when you instead of having 4 slots, you have instead of having 5, you have 20. So of course, if we then basically just combine these 2 and make it all into the same lobby, well, this problem is now exacerbated basically twice, because now you have people. So because now you basically have more people who want to play killer, and there's still not enough people who want to play survivor. You still have a lack of people, or the people are not balancing each other. Now, in Dead by Daylight, there's been implemented, I think, something like incentives, I believe, which basically they just give you more points for going onto the role that does not have enough players. So if per se, as usual, if survivors do not have enough people playing, there will be an incentive of, oh, you get double points if you come and play now, because there is not enough players right now, which this does make sense. It is a good incentive. It is basically good to basically on the go tell the players, hey, there's not enough people to play a game in general. Can you maybe fill up the other places, just so that even as well you can just play the game in general. I mean, you're playing the game, just you're not going to be playing the role that you want, but still. So it's like, fine, whatever. Some people will do it, and as far as I'm aware, it has helped. I haven't seen any people having any issues currently with the base game. However, it's now is the 2v4, no, the 2v8 system that seems to be causing a lot of issues, because as you can see, there's not enough people to play the game normally. So, uh, once I had learned of this, I, like a long time ago, I I decided to kind of think of an idea. I was like, I mean, to be honest, something that would make sense would be that you, if you come into a game, and this is gonna sound very familiar because, fuck, this is gonna be a bit of a lesson as well for anyone who might be listening. I don't know if there's anyone here. So you go into a game, and you will be told, "Hey, there's a long queuing time. There's not enough survivors wanting to play. Would you like to instead basically queue up as a killer on the background?" So background killer, right? So you've queued up as a background, as a killer on the background. Whilst meanwhile, you go into another game. So you go into another game. You go into another game and fill up a spot as a survivor in that game, right? Then once the time and once your slots have been filled up in the actual killer game that you were at, then you can go back to the game where you had queued up in the background, and then basically just go on with the game as normal. But you've helped basically fill up the spots in another game, ensuring that other players are playing, and so will happen with you, as many of these players as well right here would be basically players who have basically queued up in the background and they're waiting on their own game. That was my idea, and in the end, now I know that it might not be even the most original idea, but I came up with it, and this is a bit of an honest thing, where basically, I guess a bit of a fourth wall break here. Yes, I did come up with this idea on my own, let's say, because it's something that's logical, something that makes sense. But I guess this is more of a message for any future game designers, or any future creators in general. Just because you came up with it, it doesn't mean that somebody else is not gonna come up with it, or either they already came up with it in the past, or they're gonna come up with it in the future, and they're gonna actually go ahead with it. I mean, in the first place, I'm just some guy out in the world, who could have easily said, I'm this guy in the world, and of course, I cannot be like, oh, they did the idea that I came up with it first, or something like that. There's a lot of times that things like that happen with ideas that I had, or sometimes I'll be like, going around the internet only to find out that the idea for my incredible game that I had in my mind has already been made. So I then became kind of frustrated, being like, fuck, I don't have the resources, I didn't have the skills, and I don't have the knowledge of how to make my ideas become at least somewhat actualized, just to bring them out there. But at this point, who fucking cares? Yeah, I just do this. So basically, I don't give a shit at this point. I just need to put my ideas out in the world, and even if it's already been told, But yeah, that was more or less my idea for this hypothetical, right? Now they've said that they're gonna be doing the same. I don't know how it's gonna work because, of course, there's a lot of issues, such as, for example, what if your game has finally queued up? So what if your game? I mean, I don't know how it's done because I haven't hopped back into that game in a while. But so, for example, if your game's as a survivor is still going, and then this game is finally ready to go, what can you do then? Does this game? Can you just leave? Are you able to leave and just go immediately back into here, or do you have to wait for this game to end? Or does all these people have to wait for this game to end, and then for you to come back and start to play? Is that how it's gonna go? I don't know how to say, dude. Or I don't know how to say. Oh my god. I don't know what to say, honestly, because I don't think that's the best way to do it. I mean, in the first place, you are leaving a lot of people basically high and dry. No one's gonna be you're leaving people kind of high and dry. No one's gonna be able to get. No one at that point, basically, the issue is gonna become exacerbated, especially if especially if basically if this idea becomes successful, it will ensure that basically now out of nowhere people will find that that their games are basically ready to go. However, because because some of the people here on this lobby are still, or because of the killers here, are basically queued up in the background, and in another game, then it's gonna cause a lot of conflict, as this game has basically just started, but this game is now ready to go. So what can they do? It causes a lot of issues, and all I can think of is if you've queued up as a background player, or as a background killer, then honestly it should be kind of, what's the word, it should be allowed for you to basically leave that match immediately and then have a bot play on your stead. However, at that point, maybe people would not like that, because they kind of just prefer it, people prefer the idea that you're playing against another person, another human being, rather than a computer, because at that point that feels quite cheap. At that point, you could just have, let's say, this is a bot. Bot then fills your place. But at that point, why not instead basically decide, okay, why not instead decide that basically, okay, so at that point, why not make it so that instead of using background cues, why not just basically make it so that basically you have a place filled up mostly. However, it cannot be fully filled up. There's like one or two people that are still left, right? You need to fill those places up with somebody, or else the game's not gonna start. So what can you do? Well, you just maybe go into a boat, which people will go, yeah, okay, fine. I want to just start as soon as possible. Everyone says yes. So instead, these places are filled up by bots. At that point, maybe the queuing system, basically the queuing system, this whole background queuing system would basically just be ignored entirely, right? that could just work much better instead. Um, but maybe some people will not like that. They will just prefer that this instead. So of course, but again, this can cause issues in which basically you will have games, and understand this correctly. So you have a game in which you as a killer you've queued up, you've queued up in the background. You started a game as a survivor, but because there are other other killers that have queued up in the background in your game as well immediately. Well, basically you started, but these guys have also basically queued in the background as a killer and are now playing as a survivor, or even I suppose that there should be some code as well to ensure that this doesn't happen, because then this could be a bit of an issue, which basically now people who've queued up basically in the background of your basically somebody who's queued up as in the background here is actually in your game right here as well. So now it's gonna cause an issue in which basically none of the games can actually start, kind of, because this game's waiting for this other guy, this other. It would be very weird. At least one game would have to go first. But so it would mean that this guy would have to go back here and then fill up the spot as a killer, just to make sure that this game goes first. But at the same point, in this, there needs to be code to ensure that this doesn't happen. However, I kept thinking about this, and I kept thinking more and more. I thought, what if that's the new kind of like way of doing it instead? So instead, you start a game, you queue up, and then basically you've queued up with a bunch of people who all want to play, or at least a good chunk of them want to play as killer, right? And you will be thinking, oh, that's kind of weird. Well, here's the thing. Again, taking notes from how ticketing and service rates are done in theme parks. Can't find the correct terms, but basically, yeah. So everyone here, or at least a good chunk of people here, have queued up as killers. However, there is a difference here, which basically people who have queued up here as killers, they're going to be basically given a number, and this will usually be as a bit of a basically first come, first serve, right? So if you came first, second, can you tell that I barely draw digitally? I can only draw physically. Wow. But yeah, first, second, third. Now, basically, because these people here came first, they'll be going as killers first. So they will go into a match as killers, and this people right here will go into a match as survivors. For this, for the second match, if the people here stay here in this same lobby, do not go away, basically, the people who came afterwards will then play as killers. The people who played before as the survivors, as the killers, will now play as the survivors. And so on, back and forth, and basically doing like this, back and forth, where basically, if maybe now one of these people leave, if now in this lobby people start to leave, then they get to be filled up by other people. Even if there's more people, basically will be done in a first come first served per se. So the people who came into this lobby last, they will come in with the expectation that they are gonna get to play as killer, but it will come later on. Now, of course, this does do some issues in which maybe there's gonna be some people who are never getting off. We're basically just gonna be settled there as a killer, full on. So maybe an incentive to maybe tell them, hey, maybe try to maybe go into the next game as a survivor, or maybe there's a system in which basically you can only do it. You can only play 2 games. Per se, as a killer in a row, and then you have to go and play as a survivor for the next one to allow people who came in after you to have a go at the game. Now, I would say for my game, because yeah, I did have a game. Basically, of course, I did say I used to play Dead by Daylight, and something that I do tend to do is that when I play a game, I do like it to a degree. I do like to ensure that basically, I do like. Hello. Never mind. Doesn't seem to be updating. Hello. my idea for a game that I want to call Ephemeral. Basically, Ephemeral is, and it is kind of an out there idea. In which basically you have, it's basically a survival royale. And many of you would be asking, survival royale, what the fuck does that mean? Well, survival royale would basically is an asymmetric game. How do you actually Asy? Is it with double S? Yeah, asymmetric. It's an asymmetric game in which you have two sides. The monster, so you have two sides. You have the monster, and then you have the survivors. Just because it's easy to say, it's easy to understand at this point. At least for this game, they're actually being called survivors because the whole point of a survival royale is basically to be the last one to survive. Now, how would this game go? Well, essentially, very simple. Basically, you have a bunch of survivors. This is my game. I was thinking of the idea of having, could I have a high number? Now, of course, high numbers are not the best. I was thinking about, I mean, since it's a royale game, then 15 does seem kind of good. And then having just one monster. Now, the monster, its role is basically to just go and mow down everyone, just kill everyone as fast as possible. And the survivors, their goal is to be the last one standing. Basically, in this type of game, you would be expected to die very quickly. And I was thinking, best views. I don't think that was a real person. Oh well, never mind. Sorry, never mind. But yeah, in a survival royale, in this in Ephemeral, you have one monster that goes and mows down everyone as quick as possible. In his role, in the role of the monster, it's all about being quick, being fast, so speedy. I mean, many people will be like, quick, speedy, what the fuck? Isn't that the same thing? Hold up. Being quick, being speedy, and also being able to locate. So, okay, with quick, I do mean basically, for example, something that I kind of didn't like about Dead by Daylight is how most of the killers, especially with their M1, they're kind of all the same. It's so just the same. It's all just basically a simple hit. They look at their weapon or they stop for a second, and that's it. They have a cooldown, and that's it. Meanwhile, in my game, the idea is more is that all the killers, even for their more minute actions, they will have different types of different amounts of cooldowns, different speeds, or different yeah, difference. They will have a lot more difference in how they move and how long they take to have, per se, if they have a cooldown which they have to stop for any reason. Well, per se, difference in cooldowns on how they move, how they, and how fast they can act. Speedy, because in this game, basically, you're gonna be, at least the way that I do see it, you're gonna be sprinting the whole way. If you're not sprinting, then there's no, then basically you're not gonna be doing anything. So one another idea that I had for the monsters is that if they're able to basically string attacks as much as possible, they're gonna be going faster and faster. And with locate, it's because the way that I had it in my mind is honestly, for this game, I do want the killers or the monsters to feel as powerful as possible. So for that, I do feel that it would be better if instead they're in third person. I feel like that would give them a much more of a control, feeling more like they are in power rather than, you know, being so personal with it. Whilst with the survivors, I would want them to basically feel fear. I want them to feel that tension of, is it coming for me or is it gonna find me? So for them, instead, the counterpart will be stealth. I need to make sure to. I mean, this I'm very loose. I don't think I even have a GTD or an NDD documents yet, but still, I need to make it. So that's more of a less an idea, but at least for this guys, the idea is more or less to have stealth be their main weapon. So speedy, quick. For quick would be basically just being able to basically be able to take chances, but that would be coming down more on the skills of their own. So I want this game to feel a bit more skill based, especially on the survivor side. You know, being able to take advantage of any times that the monster has to stop for any reason, any times that they're close, being able to hide, being able to react. So quick reaction. So this would be reaction. And for speed will be to prepare, to be able to prepare for when they're coming, for when the monster is coming. That will of course ensure that they survive as long as possible. The way that I was thinking it as well is basically, at least if we're going more into the monster side, so monster. So you have your monster. Right? And you have a bunch of survivors. Now, and there would be that the monster, basically, if the monster can is able to injure, because I do think that the injure system would be good to go for, in which basically the survivors do have a bit of a kind of health that needs to be taken down until they finally get killed. But as long as that health is not fully down, then basically they can still get going as good as possible. If the monster hits one guy, then its speed will increase, and it will speed up the more people it's able to basically hit in a specific amount of time. So like for say every 15 seconds, if it's able to hit one person, it will basically fully cap its maximum speed. As well, another idea that I had is basically if it's each time that it hits, a gauge will increase, and if that gauge increases up to like, so if it hits like 5 times, the gauge will increase, and then the next attack will be an insta kill. Now, another idea that I have with this quick thing was basically each time that the monster can kill one of each time that the monster can kill one of the survivors, it will do an animation that will stop it in place as it's going down the poor thing, and then and of course, at least in the sort of like, I guess, how viable the monster is, or how able, you know, per se. Oh, so for example, this guy takes like does an animation of 5 seconds to kill people, but then you have this other monster right here that kills people in a more quicker and kills them in like 3 seconds. So that's more or less what I mean with, like, you know, which is quicker. However, this guy is more overall. In general, it has a higher speed cap, whilst this guy has a lowest speed cap. So that's more or less how I mean that I want each creature or each monster to feel more unique, rather than just be, oh yeah, and all of them just do basically the exact same thing, and they have this one power that kind of makes them different. It's just like, okay. So another thing that I was thinking of, instead of making this a sort of like a next thing, could be something more of a, or it can be kept and then popped at the right time. But of course, if you keep hitting people, so the moment that you have this fully engaged, I think that this would be something that would need to be known globally, that hey, the next person might get killed immediately, and then the monster, of course, if you have this thing, basically, so for this system, of course, if you have a health system, this throws the health system out of the fucking window, and it just basically goes, fuck it, destroy the next one that you come across. But if the next one that you come across was already about to die, then you basically wasted it, because they had small health to go for. However, if you then encounter somebody who's had full health and who was able to avoid you for most of the time, if you suddenly fucking destroy them, then a bit of tough luck then, because you should have been able to realize, okay, the monster is about the monster, if it knows that I'm full health, it will basically prioritize trying to get me rather than trying to get the people who would have been killed anyway, right? Now, another thing that I kind of wanted to think of was, okay, so how can I make it so that the map becomes smaller? Because I don't want it. Because here's the thing: I want the survivors to feel scared, but not just scared because of the. I don't want it to feel, that the place is scary just because there is a bubble of there is a cloud of acid that's slowly encroaching onto my general vicinity, and that's gonna kill me if I don't get if I don't move as soon as possible. I don't think that's a good idea. Instead, instead of having a instead what I want them to be scared of is not that something else is gonna kill them. Is that there's something. Is that the monster that's gonna come and kill them. So instead, basically, I do want it to be basically an area that will slowly become smaller and smaller, which basically there will be no places to be able to hide. So usually in the map there would be places where one can hide, but the monster would be able to destroy them. But of course, you don't want to, as a monster, you don't want to take too much time destroying places because then you're just basically wasting time. So there will be a dichotomy of: do you want to destroy all the places that you come across, ensuring that nobody who might be hiding around there would basically escape you, or would you want to just ensure that you might be able to come across anyone who's out in the open? So of course there would need to be a bit of a dichotomy there. However, this bubble thing, or this area that would be slowly that would be slowly coming in, I don't think that it should kill you, but instead it should basically alert the monster that you are here. So if you're a survivor that you decided to come a bit too close for too long. Now, so if you're in this area and I do think that there should be a bit of a grace period where basically, if you're in here, if for whatever reason you're in this area, so per se the monster is prowling around, but you can't really get out of this place, there should be a bit of a grace period where at least you can be within it for 15 seconds. And then as soon as you and then just so that there is enough time to basically slowly or as make your way into a much more safer place so that you can avoid the monster. Because of course, if it just immediately signals that you are there when the monster is right next to you or right near, just so near, it's gonna cause issues, and it would feel kind of unfair. So I think that a bit of a grace period should be given. But as well, I do feel that if you allowed yourself to be so close to this, basically it should be a game over immediately. So it would feel that basically it would be fair to basically be tagged. Then next time there would be no grace period. So if you're suddenly find yourself again within this area, then no matter what, you're gonna be found immediately by the monster, and of course, or you will be basically immediately shown to the monster. Now, I was thinking the way that this mechanic could work would be so that maybe if you're here for too long, then the monster, so per se, the monster is around here, then you're over here just fucking about, then maybe the monster can just basically teleport to you immediately. They'll be like, oh, this guy's around here. They'll be getting a signal like, hey, look at this guy, he's right here. So they can maybe teleport someone new. I was thinking that that could be an idea. Or if you're here and then you get fully revealed of your location, then basically from that point on you are fully revealed, and basically you cannot hide at all because your location is being displayed to the monster constantly. So even if you try to continue on, basically by logic, if the monster is then coming nearer, then if the monster starts to come nearer, then it will just be a matter of time. It doesn't matter. You're here. You're being basically fully displayed to the monster that hey, you are here, or hey, I am here. So they'll just basically, so it will be kind of logical. The monster comes and just gets you as soon as possible because you are quite visible. And again, in this game, the monster will be rewarded the faster that it can get everybody. And of course, if you are tagged, then it wouldn't matter how much health you have, because at that point you basically lost the game. Like all of this doesn't matter at that point. It would be at least I do feel that it just immediately killed. I feel, or at least I do feel that could be the way that the mechanic could go. However, the one thing that I started to neglect, and I quickly realized, is why would any of the survivors, beyond this, why would the survivors would want to keep on going? There's no incentive for the survivors to, per se, if you have an area in which they can hide mostly well, right? Per se, for an idea of a map, which basically you have a bunch of cabins, then why would you want to get out of the cabin for a good while? At least for a good while, if the monster is not there, and and the clouds are not coming anytime soon. So what can I do? So I kept thinking and thinking, and I was thinking, what if instead the map is kind of basically divided into areas? And here's where I kind of thought of Attack on Titan. I thought, what if instead the map is kind of divided in areas, which basically, at least the starting area is very thin, and it will quickly get swallowed up by the fog. And all of the survivors will be here, all around here. The fog will soon enough come around, and what the survivors have to do is go out there in the open, go in the open, and try to get specific items that will let them get into the next area. But if they don't have the item, if they have the item, then they can go. And if they don't, then they can't go at all. Basically ensuring that the cloud will come and get them, and that would be basically for each area. So for the first area, they have to get some specific items, and then get into the next area. For the next area, again, find the specific items, and then get into the next area, and so on. Right? Now, I did kind of think of it this way, but it could be a bit more nuanced, which basically, again, you have a kind of more natural looking formation, and then the first area would be basically this one. The next area would look a bit more natural, and the next area would be trying to make it so that it's not, so that it's kind of more or less following the same idea, but not just being, you know, circle upon circle. Like maybe some are a bit more linear, and it's literally like area after area after area. Some maps could be like that. But of course, those could be a bit tedious. Maybe even for some, maybe you have an overall area, and you have smaller areas in which the fog is slowly encroaching, but the survivors are kind of strewed around all over the place, and the survivors can only be in these smaller areas, but the monster can freely travel, of course, around all of it. So between all of these areas, it can just freely travel as it goes. That could be another idea to make it so that this system of the areas of you know how give at least an incentive for the survivors to have to go out there and get the items that they need to get into the next area, so that they don't get soloed up by the purple fog and then get fucked over, die. Again, any more incentives that I could think of that could that feel more, that would feel more like skill. So, for example, at least for this thing, I do think that there is an issue for. So, for example, if I was to make it so that basically there's only specific areas that they can get through, then all that the monster has to do is just basically wait. Well, if there's specific areas that the gates that the survivors can only go through, and all that the monster has to do is just wait here in one of these gates. And then if somebody is dumb enough to come near whilst the monster is lurking around here, then they'll be killed. But of course, so of course, if I do this, then there should be at least enough gates so that basically no matter where the monster is just lurking, then any survivor can just quickly go into the next area. Or, in general, a survivor can just go into the next area as long as they have the next the required items from the overworld map. And of course, this overworld items, I feel like they shouldn't be visible to the monster, because again, all that you're ensuring is that somebody, because again, a monster could just easily basically camp one of these items, and if but again, I want to ensure that the monster does not do anything like camping or staying in a place for too long. The monster has to keep on going. The monster has to keep on running. As long as they're running and moving as fast as possible throughout the entire place, then basically they're doing well. They're playing as they should. But how can I make it more obvious that that's all that they have to do and not camp? Because another thing they could do is that maybe, you know, if you have at least for the starting areas, it could work like this with the gates, but then for the later areas it could be just from anywhere, because there's less potential places. There's more a higher potential of camping on the monster. So for these areas, if anyone just has the items, then they can just go into the next areas they please. And maybe for the starting areas, if at least an item, or if at least one of the people opens the gate, then the open for everyone else, but then the next area needs to be actually that you get your own item, or else you don't go past. There could also be a way so that basically ensures that you're being, as also aware of what others are doing and taking advantage of that, but also making sure, and even then maybe somewhere around here. So for example, here you need this yellow item, let's say, but this yellow item could sometimes be found way over here. So of course you could play it smart, get this yellow item, wait for somebody to open the gate for you, get in, and then just immediately go into the next area and make sure that you're here. So that could also happen, but at the same time, if that happens, of course, another thing that could also happen would be for the monster to basically not do anything until the very last second, or basically the monster could literally just not kill anyone until everyone has been pushed into the smaller or the last area and all that the monster would have to do, if the monster is able to just go everywhere, then basically all the monster would have to do is just go straight for the last area, destroy all the available hiding places, just basically make it a monster ground, and then the monster would basically, as everyone goes into the natural, will go into the smallest area, then basically they will have nowhere to go, and they'll just be forced to basically try to somehow survive. So of course there needs to be also something to ensure. So for example, maybe the monster can only go past each area after a specific time limit. So on the first, let's say, if a match is 15 minutes, so on the first 5 minutes, they can only be on this. They can only be on the first area, and then after 10 minutes, they can be on the second area, or after 5 minutes, they can on the first 5 minutes they can be here. Then until there's only 5 minutes left, then they can go into the next. Yeah, that could work a bit more naturally to ensure that the monster doesn't basically ruin the chances of people who are going into the next area already. That could actually work much better, yeah. What is this? Is the music still going? Yep. Okay. I think this was a good. Honestly, this was a really good kind of dumping of ideas. I'm gonna keep this in mind. I think I might start tomorrow. I want to do kind of just starting the document and just trying to see how I can maybe show. I think I'm gonna tomorrow show how to do a good document, or at least as far as I know how to do a good document. Again, even though I graduated, I do feel like I'm lacking in something, so I need to make sure, that my skills are all as best as they can be. So yeah, I'm gonna be leaving it there. I don't feel like I need to save this monkey scratchings. But oh well, thank you so much for anyone who was here or maybe had liked to hop home for a moment. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.